You've been rejected so many times that you've developed an immunity to your own worth. You've learned to reject yourself before anyone else can do it for you. But what if I told you that this pattern isn't love? It's survival. If this sounds like I'm describing your exact emotional blueprint, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what rejection taught you about yourself that no one talks about. I read every single comment, and your insight might be the breakthrough someone else desperately needs today. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to acknowledge. When a narcissist rejects you, they're not just walking away from you. They're programming you to walk away from yourself. And the cruelest part? You become so good at it that you start doing their job for them. The narcissist didn't just reject you once, they rejected you systematically. Every time you expressed a need, they made you feel needy. Every time you showed vulnerability, they made you feel weak. Every time you asked for consistency, they made you feel demanding. Every time you wanted reassurance, they made you feel insecure. They didn't just leave, they left you convinced that you were the problem. And now you carry their voice in your head like a broken record. You're too much. You're not enough. You're difficult. You're dramatic. You're needy. These aren't your thoughts. These are their programming. But you've been running these programs for so long that you think they're your operating system. John Bowlby, the pioneer of attachment theory, discovered something profound about how we learn to love. He found that our earliest experiences of connection don't just teach us how to bond with others, they teach us how to bond with ourselves. When you've been consistently rejected, dismissed, or emotionally starved, your nervous system learns that connection equals pain. So you develop what psychologists call preemptive rejection. You leave before you can be left. But here's what's really happening in your brain when you do this. Every time you reject yourself first, you're not protecting yourself. You're training yourself. You're teaching your nervous system that you're not safe to love. You're confirming the narcissist's original programming, that you're too much, not enough, and fundamentally unlovable. You think you're being smart. You think you're learning from your mistakes. You think you're finally getting wise to people's games, but you're actually becoming your own emotional abuser. You've internalized the narcissist's voice so completely that you don't need them anymore to feel rejected. You can do it all by yourself, and you do it better than they ever did. This is how emotional abuse becomes emotional self-abuse. This is how external rejection becomes internal abandonment. This is how someone else's inability to love becomes your inability to receive love. The narcissist taught you that love is conditional, that you have to earn it through perfect behavior, that you have to prove you deserve it through endless sacrifice, that you have to fight to keep it through constant performance. They taught you that your worth is negotiable, that your needs are burdens, that your emotions are inconveniences that need to be managed or hidden. And now you carry that teaching into every relationship like a virus. You meet someone kind, and you wait for the other shoe to drop. You meet someone available, and you find microscopic flaws to disqualify them. You meet someone who actually wants to choose you, and you convince yourself they don't really know you yet. You meet someone who loves your intensity, and you start toning it down because you don't believe it's sustainable. You've become so skilled at rejecting yourself that you do it preemptively, automatically, unconsciously. Someone shows genuine interest, and your first thought isn't excitement, it's suspicion. Someone treats you well, and instead of receiving it, you're waiting for the manipulation to reveal itself. Someone is consistent, and instead of trusting it, you're bracing for the inevitable abandonment. Bowlby discovered that children who experience inconsistent caregiving develop what he called anxious attachment. They learn to monitor their environment constantly for signs of danger, for hints that love is about to be withdrawn, for evidence that they're about to be left. But what he also found was that this pattern could be rewired. The brain that learned to expect rejection can learn to expect acceptance. The heart that learned to brace for abandonment can learn to rest in commitment. But first, you have to stop abandoning yourself. You have to stop being the primary source of your own rejection. Every time you reject yourself before someone else can, you're not protecting yourself. You're perpetuating the narcissist's abuse. You've become their best student, their most dedicated disciple. You've learned their lessons so well that you don't even need them present to feel worthless. You can generate that feeling all by yourself now. You've become a rejection manufacturing machine. You can take the kindest gesture and find the hidden cruelty in it. You can take the most genuine compliment and find the lie underneath it. You can take the most consistent love and find the conditions attached to it. This isn't wisdom. This is trauma response masquerading as intelligence. The narcissist's rejection was never about you being too much or not enough. It was never about you being unlovable or difficult or demanding. It was about them being unable to handle someone real, someone who could love without conditions, someone who could see through their performance to the terrified, empty person underneath. You were rejected because you threatened their illusion. You offered them something they couldn't give themselves: genuine connection, unconditional love, emotional authenticity, real intimacy. And that terrified them because it revealed how desperately they needed exactly what they were rejecting. When someone lives behind a mask, your authenticity becomes their enemy. When someone survives on control, your surrender becomes threatening. When someone feeds on drama, your peace becomes boring. When someone thrives on chaos, your stability becomes suffocating. You weren't rejected for your flaws, you were rejected for your gifts. You weren't abandoned because you were broken. You were abandoned because you were healing. You weren't discarded because you were worthless. You were discarded because your worth threatened their entire system of self-protection. But here's what they never tell you about narcissistic rejection. It's not personal, it's pathological. A narcissist doesn't reject you because of who you are. They reject you because of what you represent. You represent the capacity for real intimacy, genuine emotion, authentic connection. And those things are terrifying to someone who lives behind emotional armor. When you stop rejecting yourself, something powerful happens. You stop being attracted to people who can't see your worth because you're no longer trying to prove it exists. You stop chasing people who run from intimacy because you're no longer running from yourself. You stop settling for crumbs because you remember what it feels like to be truly fed. The rejection wasn't your failure, it was your redirection. It was life saying, not this, not them, not this version of love that requires you to become smaller to fit into someone else's emotional limitations. Every time you've been rejected, you've been given information, not about your worth, but about their capacity, not about your lovability, but about their availability, not about your future, but about your freedom. Every rejection has been a course correction steering you away from people who couldn't handle what you had to offer. The people who reject you are showing you who they are. Believe them the first time. Don't make their emotional poverty mean something about your emotional wealth. Don't make their inability to love mean something about your worthiness to be loved. Don't make their fear of intimacy mean something about your capacity for connection. Your worth isn't determined by who chooses you. Your worth isn't proven by who stays. Your worth isn't validated by who fights for you. Your worth isn't confirmed by who sees it. Your worth simply is. It exists independent of their recognition, their approval, their presence, their acknowledgement. The narcissist taught you that love is earned through performance, maintained through perfection, and kept through constant anxiety. But real love, the kind that actually heals you, is given because you exist, not because you're perfect, not because you're useful, not because you make someone else feel good about themselves, because you're human, because you're here, because you matter. You don't need to be chosen by someone who can't choose themselves. You don't need to be loved by someone who doesn't know how to love. You don't need to be accepted by someone who rejected themselves long before they ever met you. You don't need validation from someone who's never felt valid. Your job isn't to be irresistible to everyone. Your job is to be irresistible to yourself, to show up for yourself the way you've been showing up for people who couldn't show up for you, to choose yourself with the same intensity you've been using to chase people who were never emotionally available in the first place. When you stop rejecting yourself, you stop attracting people who will reject you. When you stop abandoning yourself, you stop calling in people who will abandon you. When you stop betraying yourself, you stop magnetizing people who will betray you. Your external world becomes a reflection of your internal relationship with yourself. The narcissist's rejection was never about you. It was about their inability to handle someone real, someone who could love without conditions, someone who could see through their mask, to the wounded person underneath. Someone who refused to play their games or feed their ego or enable their dysfunction. You were rejected because you were real. And being real in a world full of people hiding behind emotional armor isn't a flaw, it's a gift. It's a superpower. It's exactly what this world needs more of. Stop rejecting yourself. You've suffered enough. The war is over. You can come home now.